Today I'm going to be talking about drawing and model-based definition in Creo. The main goal or the main point that I want to share with you all, essentially, I just want to talk about where we are in terms of documenting nowadays in Creo. Talk a little bit about where we've come from, history of drawings, plans for the future. And then I'm going to move into model-based definition. I'm going to explain a little bit of what that is. I'm going to talk about some of the benefits of it, the direction that PTC is going with this in the future. And finally, I'm going to jump into a demo and I'll show all of this in Creo 10. As I'm going through this, if you all have any questions, if you could post those in the chat, I'll try and answer them if I see them. But at the very least, I'll be sure to take several minutes at the end of my presentation to work through all your questions at that point. Okay, so my agenda today, first I'm going to briefly introduce myself and my company, PDS Vision. I'm then going to move into topic overview. And as I just described, I'm going to talk a little bit about drawing, what's new with drawings. Going to cover the big changes of the last few years. I'm then going to go into an overview of MBD, explain what it is, talk through the benefits of it, talk about what's new with MBD, and demonstrate both of those different Creo environments before opening it up to a Q&A. So my name is Sevi. I am a longtime CAD user. I come from a mechanical engineering background, and I've been with PDS Vision for about 5 years. PDS Vision, I specialize in systems engineering recently. That's actually a new thing for me as of November. I've been working primarily with simulation for the last several years. So Creo Simulate, Creo Ansys, Creo Simulate Live, and Ansys Mechanica itself. I've also spent a lot of time with detailing and drawing in Creo, advanced assembly operations, piping, and cabling. So I've really been all over Creo parametric. I'm not a wind chill guy, but if it's a Creo extension, I've probably used it. I probably have some experience with it. I probably understand how it relates to the rest of Creo as a whole. So a little bit about my company, PDS Vision. We are the largest global PTC retailer and services provider. As far as I know, we are the biggest PTC partner worldwide. You may know us as Boundary Systems. For a long time, we were known as Boundary Systems, headquartered in Cleveland, Ohio. A long history of serving the Great Lakes region for the last 20 plus years. Recently joined PDS Vision Global Group of Companies, which gives us access to infinitely more resources than we had before. That was around, I want to say 2018, 2017, and we just recently changed our name officially to PDS Vision a couple of years ago. So if you know us as Boundary Systems, we're the same company, we're the same core group of people that you've been working with for 20 or so years. Offices all over the country, headquarters officially in Texas, but a lot of people since the coronavirus pandemic are remote. We have, as I said, most of our employees are in Cleveland, but we really are all over the country: Boston, Texas, St. Louis, West Coast. We are an everything PTC partner. So we don't just provide licensing. We do a whole lot of services that can range from hosting to remote admin, wind chill support, to migrations, implementations, to training. Additionally, we don't just work with PTC products. I want to highlight ANSYS specifically. In certain areas, simulation is one of them. PTC solutions are really great. PTC uses a lot of ANSYS technology, so with Simulate Live and with Creo ANSYS, of course. But for certain projects, for certain companies, certain users, PTC products don't always get them all the way there. So we are an ANSYS partner and reseller. ANSYS is, the industry leader, most powerful simulation tool on the market. So we support it for that reason that, oftentimes PTC gets us most of the way there, but we need to bring in some third-party solutions. Keyshot is another great example. This is a rendering software. And this is another one that PTC actually has incorporated Keyshot technology directly into Creo over the last several years as well. But we do provide Keyshot, we do sell Keyshot, provide support, training, etc. as well. Here's a list of some of our customers. I'll just leave this up for just a second. And the last thing I want to mention just briefly, our technical team here at PDS Vision is, I think, second to none. We're a standout amongst PTC partners and resellers in that more than 65% of our global staff are on the technical side. Our team has a wide range of abilities. We have hundreds of years of experience between us, just on the US side. Of course, on the global side, we have thousands of years of experience using PTC products. Specialties all over the place: PLM, CAD, IoT, systems engineering, ALM. It's my favorite part of working for PDS Vision is the great team that I'm able to work with. So you'll see us at Badgerland in person next month. I will not personally be there, but be sure to talk to our team. We'll have technical there as well as sales. And it should be a really great event. Really looking forward to it. Now I'm going to jump into my presentation, and I'm going to start by talking just a little bit about drawings. Now, I know my webinar is called From Drawing to Model-Based Definition, but I want to make it really clear that PTC is not going to be getting rid of drawings. Drawings have a very long history going back before CAD even existed. Drawings have been a central part of engineering for hundreds of years, literally. And, with the invention of CAD, obviously drawings were transferred from that 2D paper drawings into 2D virtual drawings. This is not going to change overnight. Most companies still primarily use 2D drawings, although we will be talking about some companies that have moved to model-based definition. But I just want to point out that PTC is continuing to support drawing mode and will do so for the foreseeable future. I really don't see a world, this is just my personal opinion, but just knowing where companies are now with how they use the software, their workflows, their drawings, I cannot imagine any sort of push away from drawings for the next, decades, multiple decades. And we can see that through the continuous improvements that PTC is adding to drawing mode. I'm only going to be talking about specifically the new features since Creo 7. The reason for that is that Creo 7 was the last, I would call, major release since Creo 10. So I am going to cover, just to keep our content more manageable, I'm going to cover the newest features in Creo 8, 9, and 10. But there have been continuous improvements before then, of course, as well. Most of these that I've listed here, so 25 in Creo 8, 21 in Creo 9, and 7 in Creo 10. Most of these are going to be minor, and a lot of what these are config.pro options that have been added, or drawing detailing file options that have been added, just to allow you to further customize how the software works, your specific workflows. So I'm not going to cover all of them. I'm just going to cover the major additions to drawing mode here. But you can find a complete list in the Creo Help Centers, no license or account needed to access those. So just a brief summary of the major additions they've added to drawing mode over the last several years. In Creo 8, they modernized the sketching tools and sketching interface in drawing mode. This was a long time coming. In prior versions of Creo, the Sketcher interface was much more similar to what you would find in Creo and Wildfire than it was to what you find in modern Creo parametric part and assembly mode. So the sketching tools in drawing were very outdated. They have been updated as of Creo 8. Additionally, the symbols interface has been updated. And many symbols have been updated to conform to the newest versions of ISO and ASME standards. I have Creo 8 on there for that one. They have made some of those changes incrementally in terms of adherence to standards. They're always keeping that up to date. A lot of those changes will be mid-release. So, 10.020, 10.030, a lot of times those will have these changes. It wasn't all done in Creo 8.0.0.0. And the biggest one I would say is a complete redesign of how cross-hatching is handled in Creo drawing mode. And as I mentioned, and the point I want to get across, 2D drawings are still the final deliverable for most engineers, for most companies, and I do not see that changing. For most companies, for the next several years. That doesn't mean there aren't new exciting things that can be done outside of drawing mode, and that's what I'm going to be talking about. So before I move on to model-based definition, I just want to talk a little bit more about the changes that were made to cross-hatching, because these changes are going to affect your files. It's going to require action from you if you were using cross-hatching in prior versions and then you upgrade to Creo 9 or 10. This is not, something like an improvement to a tool or an interface change, because this is actually going to change how the file structure is going to work. So the main points here, Creo is now going to use .pat files for crosshatches rather than .cfg files. This file type, this is a good thing because this file type gives us a lot more customization, allows for easier editing of crosshatches. So if you want to iterate, create new versions, make changes, and it allows for more complex cross-hatching patterns as well. So this is a good thing, and this had to happen eventually. But there is a downside in that you must, or you should, I'll show exactly what it looks like if you don't, but you must convert old files, which are of a CFG format, to .pat to reuse them. Existing models are unaffected. So this is not going to break your models. This is not going to break your cross-hatching. However, if you want to use your previous crosshatches from previous versions, you are going to have very limited functionality unless you convert them to a .pat. Now, luckily, this conversion is easy. And additionally, there's actually an automated tool that PTC has added to Creo to automatically convert all of your files to a .pat. There was some pushback when this first came out before that automated feature existed. It was, a bit of a hassle to convert all of your files, find all of the different parts and assemblies where they were used. But that process has been streamlined in the additional releases since Creo 8. And what we have now is a pretty direct improvement from what we had before. So what did they actually do with this improvement? I mentioned that now we use .pat files, and that allows for easier customization, easier editing of our cross-hatching. Additionally, you no longer have to use the menu manager to add or edit cross-hatching in the drawing mode. I'm going to talk about this just a little bit. The menu manager is something that most of you are probably familiar with. It was much more prevalent in Creo in the past in prior versions. Back before I was even a Creo user, when I was still using SolidWorks and AutoCAD, most of the operations done in Creo would be done through the menu manager. The menu manager was, in my opinion, a little bit of a hassle to use, but it was very customizable. And a lot of people did like the menu manager. PTC, since the release of Creo, Creo 1, Creo 2, whatever, has been heavily moving away from the menu manager and moving towards including all Creo operations in the ribbon. So what we see here with this hatching change is a continuation of that. Modern users, modern new users find the menu manager sometimes inaccessible, sometimes a hassle. So that functionality has been modernized and it's been added to the ribbon. And that's what we see on the right. So we see an example of the crosshatch interface newly added to the ribbon here. Much more usable. We can see that we're able to see previews of each of our hatching patterns. We're able to group them in various different folders for ease of use. And we're able to very quickly change spacing, angle, offset in the horizontal and vertical direction, and color. We also have a new hatch designer for creating cross hatches. And again, it's going to have more options because the .pat file is just more capable. And we also have a new column in the model tree in drawing mode that is able to show our hatch file type. So if it's a .pat or a .cfg, we can easily display that information in the model tree and then run a mask conversion if we would like. All right, now I'm going to talk about MBD. I'm going to start with a brief introduction for this in case you all are unfamiliar with model-based definition. MBD is the practice of using 3D models to provide product specifications. That's instead of using a 2D drawing file. So what that means in simpler terms is anything that you would previously do in a drawing, MBD is going to do that in our 3D model instead. So that can include GD&T, bill of materials, different configurations, design intent, notes, symbols, etc. This has been a core part of Creo since approximately Creo 4. Feel free to fact check me on that because I am not able to find exact documentation on when this was fully added into Creo. I wasn't able to find any documentation prior to Creo 4. So that's why, I'm pretty sure it was added in Creo 4, but if I'm mistaken, somebody please call me out on that and let me know when this was actually made available. But at the very latest, it's been available since Creo 4 as a core part of Creo. We do have a GD&T advisor extension. A lot of the new features in MBD or a lot of the new additions are to this extension. This is not a core part of Creo Parametric. So this may not be included in your default license package. I can't tell you that, of course, without knowing your company. But a lot of the new features have been in this extension, so I am going to be covering it in my demonstration. There is specifically, there's a standard for model-based definition, but this is going to work in conjunction with ISO and ASME. So your same standards that apply to your current GD&T, those are likely still going to apply if you do that stuff in model-based definition. So so if you are working in model-based definition, you will likely use a combination of the 31,000 MIL STD 31,000 standard and your ISO and ASME standards. I'm going to just open that up really quick. I just have that pulled up here so we can see what that looks like. But this is going to cover everything from the best ways or the recommended ways to structure your drawings, to size your drawings, to create your dimensions. And I'm just going to scroll down a little bit more so we can get to annotation standards and how they have us do that. But you can see they actually tell us which combined states or which information that we should show in what order. And here we go. We can see how the standard recommends implementation of various different annotations. It's all covered in here in combination with your existing standards. So I'm not going to do a full case study of companies that have implemented this software, but the general idea here is that there are companies that fully use model-based definition today and have completely done away with 2D drawings entirely. Most companies, as I said, they still use drawings, but there are companies that completely rely on MBD. An example company is G&W Electric, one of our customers. They're based out of Chicago, and they just completed that transition, I believe this year. It might have been sometime last year. I don't have specific numbers from them in terms of efficiency improvements, performance improvements, that kind of thing. I can just say that, from what I hear from them, it's all working very, very smoothly. They're very, very happy. We've gotten a lot of interest recently as well from the Department of Defense. For a long time, they were against MBD. They are now heavily researching MBD to figure out how exactly they want to implement that. So anyone who does contracting work for DoD is probably going to be seeing more and more of this as we go forward. So I want to talk a little bit about pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages of using this tool. The obvious advantage is 3D versus 2D. As we all know, it is sometimes hard to communicate 3D information in 2D. And sometimes it requires more information to show the same thing in 2D that it does in 3D. You may need multiple views to capture a 3D feature that is pretty easily imaginable in the 3D environment. So the obvious advantage of MBD is being able to view and conceptualize and picture your model as it will appear in the world in 3D. And that can lead to just higher accuracy, decrease of mistakes, simplified workflows for all of the obvious reasons that looking at a 2D drawing, you have to take a good amount of thinking sometimes to translate that to 3D. Next benefit would be simplification of your design and documentation processes. You no longer, in the most extreme sense, if you completely do away with drawings, you no longer have to manage those additional files. That often means one less step in the workflow. That means a simplified workflow because you have reduced file count. It often means that you have to talk to your detailers less. You have to go back and forth with them less often. And you can have greater collaboration in that sense if you're working on the exact same file. The third advantage, and I think this is a big one because this is only going to get more and more relevant as we go forward in the future. Manufacturing integration with CAD. Going back a decade plus, certain manufacturing operations are programmed directly from CAD, CNC machines, 3D printing and additive manufacturing that's directly done or either in the CAD file or at the very least using a 3D file in a different program. But the actual integration with CAD into manufacturing has only increased with newer versions of Creo, with more capable machines, and it is only going to keep increasing. So the benefit here is that you don't have to go from 3D to 2D and then back to 3D. You can skip that entirely and do the whole workflow with the same 3D file. Last point, simplified workflows, rapid prototyping. This relates to the 3 points I already covered. By simplifying these workflows, by decreasing the number of moving parts, you're able to more quickly make iterative design changes. One thing I want to highlight is this does give the designer themselves a bit more power and control as well. You can really choose how you want to convey certain information and what information is important to convey. Gives you a little bit more power to do that rather than your drafting team. Potential difficulties, I don't want to list these as disadvantages because I honestly don't think they necessarily are. But shop floor CAD access. Now, you don't have to have access to Creo parametric on the shop floor, but that is, I would say, or I believe, my experience tells me that that's the biggest barrier of entry. Would be having your manufacturers be able to access this data. Now, this is getting much easier over time, and you don't need Creo parametric. As I said, there are multiple file types. Creo View is one of those, but there are many options to get that data to people on the manufacturing floor. But I think it's safe to say that it does that it is sometimes harder to get this information to the person who's actually doing the operation compared to getting a 2D drawing or schematic to that person. So that is a difficulty. And additionally, new and reshuffled workflows. You have to learn how to use this tool. You have to learn the additional standards that are used for this tool for documentation and detailing. So there might be a little bit of upfront knowledge work that has got to be done. Workflows might be reshuffled. That might take time to adjust. Again, I don't necessarily want to say these are disadvantages because I think in an ideal world, your manufacturers would have access to this data anyway. Just the implementation can present difficulties. Now, as I mentioned, PTC has been improving MBD pretty heavily every year. I would say it's definitely one of the areas that they have really been focusing on in terms of number of improvements, the last several years. Most of the improvements, again, I've not listed here, but there are a lot in terms of quality of life, workflow improvements to just improve how this tool works, how usable it is. like many things in Creo, learning to use it can be a little bit finicky at times, but most of the things that frustrated me have been resolved over the last 3 years. The main improvements here were to the GD&T advisor. So I'm going to spend a good amount of time in that tool today. Just a brief overview of that tool. It's going to greatly improve the easiness of creating GD&T. It's going to tell you, it's going to check for syntax, tell you you've made mistakes. It's going to allow you to implement GD&T across an entire model, excluding certain surfaces, and that will be parametric. So if you add additional specifications to a surface, then that surface will not be included in the overall anymore. So it really greatly improves the intelligence of GD&T, how they're able to update with changes to your model, and can help reduce error by finding syntax errors as you create them. And additionally, the benefits that apply to drawing mode have applied to MBD as well. So symbol improvements, cross-hatching improvements, these have been carried over from drawing to MBD. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into Creo. And the first thing I'm going to do, I have an extremely simple model here set up. It's just going to be a block with some cross-hatching applied. I'm creating a section so that we can see our cross-hatching here in the right view. And I want to mention that this model was created in Creo 7. So the workflow I'm going to be showing here, this is what you would be seeing if you created a model in Creo 7 and then your company upgraded to either 9 or 10. Because as I mentioned, Creo 9 is when they implemented these changes. So we'll notice this, this message is going to pop up. It says that an XCH pattern has been detected. We need to convert these to PAT. I can continue, I can leave this here and continue working with it, but my functionality is really limited. We see in the ribbon, most of my options to translate or to rescale, these are not going to be available. Very limited options here. The ability to convert to PAT is very easy. Just got to move my Zoom info out of the way. So I have the ability, the operation here to convert to PAT just for this single hatch that we have created. But I just wanted to show that not located in the ribbon, we have the option to convert all cross hatches to PAT. So that's going to be useful if you're moving into Creo 9 and you are overwhelmed with finding all of your hatches and changing them all. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And we'll see it's just a single click. It has been converted. We now have these fields that have opened up. I'm going to open up the hatch gallery. We can see various standard cross hatches. So ANSI and ISO. We also have user defined. So this is where cross hatches would show up, created by user. And we'll see we have converted from XCH. So this is where your old cross hatches that you're bringing in from earlier versions of Creo are going to show up. Of course, I can browse and locate patterns from previous versions, load them in here, and convert them to PAT. By default, it's just finding PAT files, but we can just change this to all files and find our previous. While we're on the topic of cross-hatching, I just want to show one more thing. I'm going to go back into part mode here. And I want to open up the hatch editor. So what this allows us to do, I'm going to go ahead and click plus here to add a line. And this gives us further customization of cross hatching. So we'll see that the options here are pretty standard, but I can set my offset directly rather than having to cut that in half or double it. I can edit my spacing directly. I can change my angle. I can change my fonts. Now, additionally, these fonts, we have the ability to create these ourselves. So we can see that this is dot dash dot dash dot dot dash. It looks like is the entirety of the pattern. We are able to create those ourselves. I'm just not going to show that today. What I do want to show is we have the ability to create additional lines. So let's say offset 3, angle 45, and add. We'll notice that now we have both of these added. Actually, we have 3 because I added one behind the original as well in gray. We can change our colors, customize this however we would like, and save. So hatching much improved. This is part of a continuing trend of moving away from the menu manager in drawing mode. Of course, we still have the menu manager for a good amount of stuff. But so for example, adding multiple drawing models still work with the menu manager, but we are moving away from that. The next thing I want to show is the updated sketching interface in drawing. So I'm actually going to jump back really quick to Creo 7. So this is before the sketching change, just so that we can compare directly. So I just want to point out this top ribbon. I just kind of as a main point, if I jump over and go to sketch, we'll notice it looks mostly the same. Many of the features that you may be used to, such as translate, corner, that do work a little bit different than Creo parametric sketcher, those are still here. So this is not going to be a huge change. This is really just going to improve how this tool works. So just to review how this works in earlier versions of Creo, if I'm to create a line, first of all, it's not easy to snap to most references. I have to go over here, select this as a reference, and then I can snap my line to it. And additionally, just the line creation in general, it's not very easy to customize my dimensions. So if I wanted to make this, 5 inches long, it's very finicky to do that. If I wanted to make this at a 35-degree angle, I have to hold right click. I have to set my angle. Let's do 60. And that will then kind of lock this in to be at that specific angle. Once I make this line, it is not easy to edit those dimensions. Just not very user-friendly, in my opinion, in terms of how this works. So I'm now going to jump to Creo 10. And we'll notice right away that this looks much more like Creo parametric. We can see that I have dimensions. I can hit tab to switch between them. I can also hold right click and switch to polar coordinates. So that would be an angle plus a radius. Many options such as snapping behavior are available right there in the mini toolbar. Speaking of snapping behavior, we can see that this now works much like Sketcher in Creo parametric. And just like Creo parametric, I can change which of these or which snapping behaviors we want to enable and which we want to disable. The last thing I want to cover, just very briefly, in terms of new drawing features, I've talked about cross-hatching and I've talked about the new sketcher. Just briefly want to talk about symbols. This is another example of a feature that has been moved away from the menu manager and has been much improved by adding this to the ribbon. So once again, kind of like the cross-hatching gallery, we have the ability to quickly view many symbols in different categories and select them visually. This, in my opinion, is massive. Not having to just memorize the file names is very great in terms of usability. So I'm going to go ahead and select a symbol. And I'm going to expand symbol customization. Both grouping and variable text can now be done directly here in the ribbon. So these are all of our subsets of symbols. I can go ahead and check these, and I can change my variable text as well directly here in the ribbon. All right. Okay. Besides that, most of the drawing changes are minor. I would say those are the biggest ones. The continuing trend for Creo has been to get rid of the menu manager when possible, improve the ribbon and the interfaces when possible. For drawing, it's not like there's a lot of new cutting edge features that haven't been around for hundreds of years. This stuff is so standardized. But as I said, Creo is not moving away from drawings anytime soon. Continuing to improve it and modernize it, and there's really not many menu manager use cases left. It would not surprise me if they got rid of those in the next few years. Now, as the last part of my demonstration, I'm going to be showing model-based definition. So we can see this is all done in Creo parametric part mode or assembly mode. Sorry, just a second. I'm struggling with this this zoom bar. There we go, blocking some of my screen. Okay. So if I jump into the annotate tab, the entirety of the annotate tab is model-based definition. So this interface is what we are going to be living in when we are working in model-based definition. So if you'll notice the tabs at the bottom of my screen, these represent combined states. So if I open up my view manager, we'll notice that there are several combined states here that have been created. And the workflow here, as I mentioned, is described in the tolerance standards that I pulled up. So I'm going to go ahead and just click through these. It is required if you're, just in case you're using old tolerance standards, this is a common question. You just have to mention which tolerance standards you are using. So it's not necessarily a problem if you were, if Creo is up to date on the most recent version of ISO and you are not, you're just going to specify all of that in your notes here. Now we can see that these notes, if I move around my model, I move around my screen, I rotate, these are not going to move. These are set to be flat to screen. So no matter where my screen is, these are not going to move. No matter how I choose to view this, I'm going to be getting the same info. However, we will notice in MBD, we are able to create annotations in 3D, and these are going to be aligned to a certain plane. So if I click these and I want to move them around, I'm going to be able to do that, but they're going to stay on that same plane. Unless, of course, I move them, which we can do, and I'm gonna cover. All right. So I'll just click through the rest of these. We can see we have a left view, we have a top view, and we have, there we go, and we have a bottom view. As I mentioned, there's not really a necessity to always show as much information as we see in the 2D drawing. And the reason for that is because if we're able to view the 3D, less information is often needed. We're provided additional information by being able to view this in 3D is another way to think about it. Okay, so I'm going to do some a little bit of edits to my annotations that I have here. The first thing I want to point out is a new feature that was added in Creo 10. It's now possible to associate surface finish annotations or symbols with dimensions or tolerances. So what I mean by that, I'm going to go ahead and looks like I'm on the right view. I'm going to click this symbol. This is a symbol that, a user created symbol here. We can see it was customized in the ways that I just showed. I'm going to get the mini toolbar. So I'm going to left click that again. And I'm going to select repeat to repeat existing symbol. And we'll notice that I am able to attach these to existing annotations. So how this works, I'm just going to click once to associate this symbol. And we'll see it's now associated with this annotation. And then I'm going to be able to click again or middle mouse button to actually place. So let's see, I'll go ahead and place this right here. I'm just going to change that to a 2. And we're all good. So now when I go to move this, they're going to move together. They're going to remain associated. This is something that should have been in this mode forever, but was recently added, and it's a big usability improvement for complex tolerances. Next, we can see a surface finish. I showed a little bit ago that this was able to be moved freely along the plane that it's placed on. We can establish a link if we would like. So again, just left click and change placement or establish link. And we can see that I can associate it with these existing tolerances. So I'm going to go ahead and associate it with the same one. Move this to a suitable place and middle mouse button. There we go. And as we showed before, they're all linked. They all move together. Okay, now I'm going to jump into GD&T Advisor for the remainder of this MBD demo. I do just want to point out very briefly for those of you not familiar with MBD or who have not used this, just go over the interface really, really briefly. You'll notice that a lot of this stuff is the same that you will see in drawings. And the main point to get across here is that these are the same annotations. So if I create dimensions here, and then I jump over to a drawing made from the same model, we'll see that these tolerances, these dimensions are going to be shown here as well. Of course, we can choose not to show them here, but it's the same annotation. It's the same piece of data that we are showing. So again, if you're not familiar, this really is a very similar process to drawings. We can choose to show existing dimensions and annotations in much the same way. Combination states are kind of a core part of this. So you can show what essentially amounts to different views. So this is built right into the ribbon here as well. what we see here is the plane that these annotations are going to be placed on. So I mentioned that these security markings at the top of the page are flat to screen and they remain flat to screen. But these annotations are placed on a plane such as front, right, top, etc. It looks like I'm almost out of time. I'm talking too much, so I'm going to go through this very, very quickly here so we have time for questions. All right, GD&T advisor. We can jump in here. This is going to be a lightning round. We have a feature tree, so we're able to see surfaces, patterns, holes that are tolerance. We can see the elements that are involved. We have this advisor tree, which is going to let us know if if there's any syntax errors or any errors that are recommended or recognized rather by the software. So very quickly, we'll notice that when I click on this, this security marking, it's saying that this tolerance applies to all of these highlighted surfaces. It says unless otherwise specified, applies to all surfaces. I'm going to very quickly work through this and just add a new tolerance to this top surface right here. We will notice that the specific type of tolerance is recognized. And it is going to gray out ones that are not going to apply based on what it knows about the feature I'm tolerancing. So let's make that 0.1. And I'm going to add an additional tolerance here as well. We'll notice that once again, this is showing us what our options are here. And again, I'm just clicking through this really quick. And okay. This is going to be generated for us. And now when we click this, applies to all surfaces unless otherwise specified, we'll notice that the surface is not included. And I'm out of time. There's a lot of cool stuff that they've added to this tool. There's a lot more that this can do. If I create a tolerance that is missing a piece of information or that has a wrong piece of information, I'm going to get this notice here. I'm able to select these, move them to different planes, apply datum targets to those references. All very interesting stuff that has been added in just the last year here. Makes your workflows a lot better.
Sevi, I see that.
Yes.
Maybe if you guys wanted to, you could speak on that at the April meeting, the GD&T advisor. Just you guys don't have a subject yet, so that's an idea. I know that you said you won't be there, but maybe if somebody else is able to speak on that.
I think that's a great idea. I will talk to the people that are going to be there on my team, and yeah, I think that would be great to show.
Okay. And there's a couple things on the chat. I don't know if that got answered or not.
It did not. I forgot to look at the chat, so I'll go ahead and do a quick Q&A right now. I've also got my email up on the screen. If you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out directly over email, and I will get to anything that I don't receive right now. So question, are we able to create tables in MBD yet, or do we have to make tables with symbols? So the answer to that is I don't think there is a way to do that yet, unfortunately. Let me just make sure that I can't find it. But no, I don't think you can do that yet, unfortunately. That's how I would say a big downside, major downside. You can try and get that information in a an intelligent note or as a symbol, but yeah, unfortunately not.
What does your title block look like?
So let me just go back to, let's see, titles. There we go.
Oh, okay. So it's not like a normal 2D title block. It's just notes. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not, you can't do it as a table. It's just gonna look like this.
Yep. I think some people are just more in the traditional way and they want to see a title block, not necessarily just smart notes.
Yeah, I agree. That tables are kind of essential for certain things. I'm not sure the status on, adding those, if that, what the technical limitations are or what, but oh, okay, amazing. Actually, somebody just commented in the chat that's included in Creo 11. I haven't gotten a chance to check out the beta test for Creo 11 yet, but that is really huge. That is really awesome.
Yeah,
So Creo 11 should be
sorry.
coming. Sorry.
Oh, I sorry, I was interjecting, but does by including tables, are they going to include repeat regions?
I don't know. I am not sure what exactly is included there, but I do have access to the beta. I haven't gotten a chance to mess around in the beta yet, but I can confirm that or deny that for you and get back to you.
Okay, yeah, if you can include your email in the chat or whatever, or put it back on the screen, I could at least, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. Somebody asked, would you be able to share the MBD file that I'm presenting with all the states? And yes, yeah, I can do that. I usually usually when I've done webinars in the past, I have access to an email list of who's asking questions, and so I can get back to people and send things to them. Deb, I'll talk to you about that just to make sure I can get this info out.
Sure.
But yes.
Just remind me. Yeah, I can do that.
Awesome. Thank you.
And then I was just going to add that for our April 26th, Mark DeCrane, our PTC Illinois, Wisconsin guy, is speaking on Creo 11. So that might be a place where you could ask some of the Creo 11 questions too.
Awesome. I'm not sure if there's a release date yet for Creo 11. I feel like there usually isn't until pretty short before release, but I'm not, if anybody knows release date, feel free to speak up, but it's almost always every year. It's going to be in the next couple months. It's always pretty much spring. Okay, I think that's all that we've got. If anybody else has additional questions, feel free to reach out via email. I had to include this somewhere in a user group called Badgerland.
That's
so
good. Thanks. That's good.
All right. I hope you all have a great afternoon.
Deb, you ought to copy that and put it on the Facebook page or somewhere anyway. That's awesome.
You're right. This should be incorporated.
It is cute. Yeah, maybe send it to me if you can. I don't know. But thanks, everybody. See you guys next month.